Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision.
Hey guys, so welcome back. I have a great guest here with us today. I have Terry Stanley, and he has more than 50 years in the grocery industry, including serving as CEO. He brings practical, real-world leadership experience that resonates with today's operators and teams. His insights aren't theoretical, they're built from decades of leading stores, developing teams, and driving results. Terry's presentations are built to drive real results, not just motivation. 50 plus years of grocery experience, former CEO with hands-on operational expertise, proven track record building strong, accountable teams, speaker at industry events, including NGA Practical, no-nonsense approach leaders can apply immediately. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Glad to be here, Carly.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit, how did you even get started in the industry? Because you've had decades in the grocery industry.
Yeah, so as a young kid, my best friend and I decided we had to be in business together. So we're mowing yards in the neighborhood, chasing that dream. And there was a house in the neighborhood that we knew had an executive living in it. And he happened to be a vice president for a local grocery store there in town. And one Saturday after mowing his yard, he would always bring us out a Coke with crushed ice, which we had never seen. Back then, crushed ice was not, it came out of a pop-up ice tray. So yeah, I told him, I said, I'm ready to go to work. You need to put me to work. And he said, well, go down to the store Saturday morning and tell him I said to put you to work. 51 years later, I'm a CEO of a grocery chain. So it was really an incredible journey.
Amazing. That's really, really cool. So tell me a little bit about the grocery chain that you were last working at. Which one was that
Yeah.
one?
So that was Fresh Value. I've
Mhm.
spent almost the last 5 years there. That's in Alabama. It's a small regional, uh, what we would call an independent grocery chain. It's not part of a large organization. When I arrived here, we had 9 stores. We most currently have 15. So our growth has been really good over the last 3 to 4 years. It's family owned. It's been in the family for now the fourth generation, which is also very odd to see a family go through that many generations of ownership.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. And I'm curious as well, what brought you to Fresh Value?
Yeah, actually, in the grocery business, Carly, you meet a lot of folks. You attend trade shows, you go to conferences. I met Jerry, the owner, at a share group where we shared ideas that things we had learned in the business. We weren't competitors. I was working at the time in the Carolinas. He was working, of course, here in Alabama. And when he went looking for someone to run his company, my name, according to him, kept popping up in some of the circles. So he reached out one day and said, "Hey, would you consider coming to Alabama and running my company?" And of course, I said no. And then I came. So, it was a great transition, and it's been a tremendous amount of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think what's really cool too is like, as you mentioned, you grew the store or grew the company from 9 stores to 16 in just a few years. So that's like a lot of momentum for a small independent grocery store. So when you first came in, is that something that they were looking to do? Is that something that you noticed was possible?
Yeah, a little of both. I mean, Jerry definitely wanted to grow the company, and him growing it to 9 stores was a tremendous feat. But that's also about the time he realized that he liked owning it, he liked growing it, he liked being a part of that back office behind the scenes. But he didn't really want to be involved in the day to day, and that's why he came looking for me. When I got here, I saw the opportunity and understood why he wanted to grow it. So that was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to join Jerry was because uh, he had the idea of growth, that he wanted it, and I saw where it was absolutely possible. So, we then went from 9 stores to 15 and actually even opened our first store in Mississippi. So it was a tremendous growth path for sure.
That's very cool. And I'm curious as well because when you first started, I know that it has the two separate dynamics, but I can't remember if that's how it was when it first started, where it has the supermarket and the meat focus concept. Was that separate when you began, or was that something that you dove into later?
Yeah, so we have two concepts. We have the Fresh Value, and then we have Meat Depot by Fresh Value. And Meat Depot was a unique um, story in and of its own. It was really very focused on fresh meat, fresh cut meat daily, and a tremendous push to bring the customer in for those fresh offerings. What I saw was so many great things happening on that fresh value side as a traditional independent grocer, but I also saw tremendous opportunity on the Meat Depot side. And I recall our first meeting with Jerry and Brad, who Brad is a 50% owner in the Meat Depot. That was really his concept. Um, I told him, I said, guys, we need to be doing a whole lot more of Meat Depot in our fresh values and really focusing on meat. But then we need to be bringing some of that traditional grocery knowledge and put those concepts into place in the meat depots. And that really was where we fired the guns, if you will, and really started chasing that growth.
That's cool. And so you basically kind of worked with both brands to carry off the each other's strengths, right? And it's interesting because what did you see about the two of them that you knew that having them almost work together was better than completely separating them?
It really just was the focus on the ads,
Mhm.
that we were writing at the time for our consumer, for customer to really get them into the meat depots. We were writing ads that were really focused in other means in our fresh values, and I saw both working really well. Customers, we had a couple of stores that were really close, and I saw customers literally going to fresh value to take care of those, take care of their needs from that ad, and then they would drive across town to Meat Depot where they would shop there, and we were the same owners, same stores, and it's like, why make the customer drive? Let's give them some of both in all stores, and that's really where
Mm.
it began.
That's really interesting. So you were noticing they were driving a long distance to get there. So when you guys combined them, you started putting both in the same store?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
stores really offer a lot of the same things. We still have a tremendous meat presence as far as the amount of space we dedicate in our meat depots to
Hmm.
meat offerings. But you can go to either store now and get the same offerings. And that was really what we were hoping to do.
Okay. That's really cool. That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. And I'm curious as well, like, so when you think about growing into that many additional stores, what else would you say contributed to being able to expand to that degree?
Oh, there's no doubt, Carly, it's people.
Yeah.
It's a people business. And you hear that in business just almost regardless of the type of business you're in. It really is a people business. Finding great talent,
Mhm.
finding folks that work for you that you see something in, and you realize they can do so much more. So you begin working with that young talent to bring them on, and then also I hired some talent from outside, more along a corporate level. We brought in loss prevention, and we brought in a human resource individual to help us build that aspect of the business. So we started acting like a larger company. We started
Mhm.
acting like a bigger business to set ourselves up to handle that growth. And and we were able to find some fantastic talent. And really, when I arrived, it was myself and really two other young men that were running the entire company. Today, our corporate staff is 10.
Mhm.
So, and that was myself and 10 before my recent retirement. So you have to grow both the corporate side and the store side really and put great people in place to have that kind of sustained growth and to have successful growth.
Yeah, I'm curious as well because when you think about like what to you was a great person, what were some of the parameters you guys were looking for? How did you figure out, like this is the person that would fit?
That is a great question, and a lot of times I hate to say this, but it's a little bit of gut. You go through a stack of resumes from online folks that are reaching out, calls that you get, and you see so many talented individuals. But what I was looking for was someone that may have been with a large company like a Kroger or an Albertsons or one of your Publix, one of your really large regional and national brands, but yet they had the capacity to take that down into an independent operator where you have just a few stores, a handful of stores. You're dealing with a few hundred employees, not thousands of employees. And some people really struggle to make that transition. It's almost like, well, this is beneath me. I'm going from a company that has 100,000 employees to a company that has 500. But I didn't see it that way. And I was looking for people that saw it the same way that I did. And when I ran across those folks, I quickly jumped on them and quite honestly was very successful in finding some great talent.
That's awesome. That's very cool. And then when I think about like even the culture on the inside, because you guys have, well, you have 10 people when you recently left. Like, what does that look like on the inside? How many are executive or management level? And then how do you guys like manage meetings, connecting, all those different dynamics?
Yeah, so you have a CEO, and then we have a director of fresh operations that covers our meat, our produce, our deli bakery side. And then we have a director over our grocery, the non-food side, or excuse me, the non-refrigerated side. Um, Below that, we have a district manager that oversees our store managers. We have an HR, we have loss prevention, and then we have a pricing director. And that pretty much makes up the entire team. Like a lot of large companies, we do a lot of remote meetings. We meet with Teams meetings online or Zoom. Um, and then we have, a fair number of in-person meetings. But when you're that small, quite honestly, we text, we phone, because I mean, with 600 employees roughly today, 650, um,
Mhm.
it was it wasn't abnormal for me to get a phone call as a CEO from a store manager going, "Hey, boss, I got a question for you." We were a very tight knit group, almost family like. And quite honestly, that was the charm of it all for me. It wasn't, the CEO that's just disconnected from the rest of the business. I felt
Mhm.
very connected every day. And
Mhm.
I thought that's what made it such a special role, if you will, to end my career particularly.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum. Yeah, that is really nice. And I'm curious too, because I think what's interesting as well is, when you came on, there were the 9 stores and you guys grew to the 16. And you made the decision while you were growing to take on some additional staff that felt, like it's time to have more corporate style staff because we're growing so large. It's interesting though, because at 9 stores, you think that they would have had more. What would you say when you came in, you saw was strained the most that you were like, it's really time for us to expand?
Yeah, and when you think of some of those roles, Carly, like a human
Mhm.
resource, the people person, the asset protection person, you had two people trying to do all of that. And what I saw was they were on the phone from the time they woke up in the morning until the time they got to bed at night. They were
Mhm.
just taking phone calls. They were, what we call putting out fires, just chasing all the troubles of the day. They weren't they weren't given time to build the business. They weren't given time to help develop our people, to help teach
Mhm.
and train and coach our managers, to make our stores better. what they were doing was running around with a fire hose, just going, here, let's put out this fire, let's put out that fire, and bringing in a few extra hands really allowed people to start having some time to quite honestly develop our team and coach and teach and train, which is
Mm.
so critical to success. Even though you may hire a manager that's outstanding at running a store, they still need to learn how we do it. They need to understand what's important to Fresh Value or Meat Depot. So
Mm.
there's a lot that goes into that. And uh, the two gentlemen that were here when I first arrived, they simply didn't have the capacity to do that. They had the desire, but not the resources.
Okay, so part of that was just adding the additional staff to ensure that they had the time, it sounds like. Yeah.
Spread the workload around
Yeah.
to the way it should be.
Okay. And I'm curious too about when you guys were expanding, what you look for when you're looking for locations, right? Because I think it's also interesting. You went to Mississippi as well. So it's like,
Sure.
what do you guys look for in locations and why there as one of the first places that you go out of state?
Yeah, and it's all about opportunity, Carly. We being a small independent, we don't build stores from the ground up. We don't spend millions of dollars to build these beautiful shopping centers like you see so many
Mhm.
grocery stores in. We look for real estate that's available, may have already been a grocery store in its past life, but was closed, or several of the stores we bought from owners that no longer wanted to be in the grocery business. They
Mm.
were tired. They were ready to retire. They wanted out of the business, and we went in and took over their business. We refurbished the store, if you will, did a little remodel, changed the name on the front of the building, and opened up. So a lot of what we did was take advantage of opportunities in small towns where they wanted a grocery store. We were a right fit, and we saw the opportunity, so we took it.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And when you guys expanded with Mississippi, was that something that you knew you wanted to go into that state intentionally?
Yeah,
Mhm.
really, and even Georgia and Tennessee. I mean, we consistently look and still look for opportunities. But the market drives a lot of that. The economy drives a lot of that,
Mm.
and the economy has gone through several different changes, Carly, with the change in office of the presidency. Then you just look at things that happen with gas prices and SNAP and government assistance. All of those things factor into our business, and the economy changes. And when it does, how people shop, particularly groceries, changes. And a lot of folks don't realize that because the grocery dollar that most households spend is the dollars left over
Mm.
after the bills are paid. And when gas is $80 a tank, there's a lot less money to spend on groceries than when
Mm.
gas is $40 a tank. So our business goes through tremendous fluctuations, and that drives a lot of the economy within our own business and how we look at stores that we're opening, when that's the right time.
Mm.
Um, so all of those things play into it as well.
That's interesting. I'm curious too, because when you talk about like looking at the economy and what is going on, is there a particular individual that keeps like kind of their eye on that pulse within the company? Are you guys all connecting with it so that when you get together, you know the way to go?
Yeah, it has to be my job, obviously, as CEO, but Jerry, the owner, also, and Brad, both very connected, understand really the business. They understand how the economy changes the business, and how the simplest of thing can really boost our business. It can also be a huge drag on our business. And so we're constantly looking at different barometers, if you will, of the industry, of the nation, of the regional areas, um, because it's just so important to how that moves the needle from the sales perspective, and of course, how sales go really is detrimental to how much how we schedule our help, how we push our business inside the store, what we're running on ad, when we're running it, what time of the month it is. All of that factors in tremendously in the grocery business.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm curious as well, like I know your day-to-day as CEO can change, it's definitely different, but what did you spend the most time on as CEO of the company? I know everyone kind of is a little bit different.
Yeah, I don't have a finance department. So I'm sort of the chief finance officer. Um, we outsource marketing, so we write our own ads. So when you look at the difference in my role and the role of a CEO for a large regional or national chain, they had armies of people to do certain jobs for them. I had 9 people besides myself. And so I did a lot of the financials. I did a lot of the budgeting. I had to be very connected to our marketing and how we ran our
Mm,
ads. So I was probably a lot more day to day hands on than a typical CEO. And what I loved about that too, Carly, is that gave me so much more insight into how the operations work than
mm,
probably some CEOs have the chance to enjoy because they may have come up through a particular area of the business, be it finance or marketing or operations, and they landed very successfully in a CEO chair. I landed in a CEO chair and had to learn a lot of different operational issues of marketing, finance that I may not have had to learn otherwise. And that was also, again, part of the fun and the charm of it all is that uh, I was probably able to do some things that I might never have had an opportunity to do had I not gotten this opportunity.
yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome. I'm curious too, because you are wearing a lot of hats in this dynamic, and I know that can keep you quite busy. Simultaneously, like, how do you keep yourself from becoming the bottleneck when you're having to be involved in this many directions?
That is a great question because you have to be careful that you're not. And the way to do that is you have to be an excellent uh, delegator.
Mm,
You have to have people that you can be confident in. They have to be able to make decisions without them having to come to you for every single decision that you make. And I think I did a really decent job with that because we were able to keep the motor moving. Um,
mhm,
and I've seen a lot of folks that they really get bottled up with, well, make sure you run that past me before we make a decision. And let's make sure that, nothing is done until I've signed off on it. I didn't do that. Um,
mhm,
I would really tell my folks, look, why are you calling me? You have to be able to make those decisions and you got to be confident about it. And if you're just to a point to where you need my okay, then you call and you get it. But other than that, you make the decision and you keep this engine running. And I had a staff that absolutely they blew me away every day. Sometimes they would call and go, boss, I might have made a mistake, but I made a decision. And I'm like, well, if you made a decision, there's not a decision you can make that we can't back out of and fix if it was wrong. But to me, not making the decision was way worse than making a
mm.
bad decision.
I like that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I'm curious too, because I know when you guys were growing and you grew pretty fast, it's also a low margin business, which can be quite challenging. So, how did you ensure that you could move that quickly without overextending?
That is truly an issue and probably one of the biggest issues. Also, based on the fact that we try to pay cash for everything, we try to be a cash flow business. We don't like debt. Debt is not good in our business. And so you better make good decisions. And if you don't make a good decision, you better have a backup plan.
Mm,
And you better be willing to, what I call shuck and jive. You better be willing to go to plan B, plan C, plan D if needed, because you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're not careful when you're growing that fast that you don't overextend yourself. the way we fought against that card was really trying to make sure that we always did our due diligence, that we fought hard for the best negotiated terms, that we always tried to get the rent just a little bit cheaper or pay for it. And quite often, even using used equipment and going out to wholesale houses and finding equipment that was partially worn instead of buying new. That allowed us to keep our costs down. That allowed us to go in
Mm.
cheaper. That allowed us to keep our prices cheaper, which is what ultimately our customers want.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. Thank you. And I'm curious because I know that you even watched a really strong regional chain get bought and sold until it was gone. So, what would you say actually kills a healthy regional grocer in that aspect?
Well, in that case, it really came down to money, where the company was being bought and sold for money, not for the business. And I think that is just so critical. When a company begins to be purchased and bought by someone that's interested in making money, and their only interest is in making money, and they'll do it at the detriment of the customer, the employee, the business. The objective is to turn the business fast, to go in, strip the things they
Mm,
can, improve the bottom line, and sell it and make a profit. Um, I haven't seen that work very well very many times in my career. And it's really sad because I've seen some great stores, some great people lose their jobs, stores that were closed because of that. Um, and yeah, being a part of that's no fun.
mm,
I was a part of that a couple of times in my career that launched me into other companies where that didn't happen. And it's not a good thing when a company becomes part of that churn where someone's just wanting to use them to benefit themselves. And the real loser in a lot of those instances is the customer, because oftentimes small grocery stores in rural towns are closed,
mm,
and then the customer has limited opportunities, or it creates a food desert, which we're always looking for. As a matter of fact, we recently opened a store in a food desert in a small town in Alabama. You had to literally drive 20 miles in any direction to get to a grocery store. When you think about
wow.
elderly, shut-ins, people
Mhm,
without transportation, they have to rely on other people to bring them their groceries. And it
mhm,
was a proud moment for us to open that little store back up after it had been closed for almost 9 years. And we
mhm.
opened it up, and now the town people there can can shop, and they can shop locally and not have to drive into a larger town to get groceries. So we look for a lot of opportunities like that as well. And being in rural Alabama, those unfortunately, those opportunities exist every day.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company. What's interesting too is that went, unoccupied for so long, like 9 years is a long time. What do you think people are worried about, concerned about, as opposed to going in and creating value off of a location like that?
It is so hard, Carly, because you know going in that the town is small, so you almost know what your market audience is.
Mhm.
And there's an economy of scale there that says, boy, is there enough people here to keep a store, profitable. So it is a very fine line. You do understand as a businessman or a businesswoman why people wouldn't do that, because the risk is so much higher. But there is reward. And that's what we tried to focus on, is balance the risk, but also make sure we were balancing the reward as well.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, because when you look at like risk to reward, what would you say, like, how do you guys measure that? What does that look like?
It's really all in financials. It really is. It's taking a look and really understanding your business model, understanding how that business model works, what generates your gross, what
Mhm.
your expenses are, being really sharp in that, not lying to yourself, not creating numbers, unfortunately, that are going to make the finances work, but you're stretching the truth. And that's one of the hardest things I think business people deal with today, especially finance people. Is like, well, if we do 25% instead of 24, then this works. So
Mhm.
we just have to get 25%. And the rest of the room is sitting there going, we're never at 25%. What makes us think that store is going to be different? I may not be explaining that very well, but I think one of the hardest things for finance people to do is to have integrity in everything they put on the table rather than trying to make the number work, make sure that they have numbers that will work.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. And I'm curious too, because I know when you decided that you were going to retire, right? So you knew you were going to leave, succession was really important to you. So when did you actually start to look for someone to replace you?
Yeah, so I went to Jerry and I knew I was getting of retirement age, and I told Jerry that the worst thing that could happen is that we wait until something bad happens, and that is I just get tired and have to retire,
Mhm.
or I got so old I couldn't move anymore, or I got sick. I mean, succession is there for a reason. And I told Jerry, we're replacing a CEO's role. This isn't a store manager. We need to be very, very determined in what we want to do. We needed to have a plan. So we started working that plan, and we found Shane. And then we put a plan together for a year, where for 6 months we allow um, Shane to just be involved in the stores, go out there, run them every day, get to know the people, get to know our business, really get to know Fresh Value and Meat Depot inside out. The last 6 months leading up to my retirement, he spent with me,
Mhm.
and he got immersed in the finance and the marketing and all of those other areas that he too had never been um, just immersed in. And so it was a long year, but we had a plan. I think we went about it as about as good as you could, because again, the only option is to just hire the first person that you can and throw them out there and hope it sticks. And we didn't do that. We were very determined to find a good individual that we knew had all the attributes that we were looking for. Shane represents that in just in his best way, and then train him up and
Mhm.
let him go. And I'm very proud of what we've done and what he's accomplishing today.
That's awesome. And I'm curious too, because even finding him, like, where did you go to be able to ensure that you found the right person?
I went to the first place I knew to go, and that's to my background. I went
Mhm.
looking for all of those people still in the business. They had to be younger than me because they couldn't be of retirement age. But I looked back, Carly, at all of the people that had worked for me, that
Mhm.
that I had great confidence in, that had impressed me, that I thought had all the right attributes of a great leader. I made a short list of those individuals and I went hunting. And when I called Shane, I told him exactly what I was doing and what I was looking for. I invited him and flew him and his wife down and met with Jerry and Brad, and we rode stores. And we were very deliberate and very we talked business. And after that weekend, we called Shane and said, "We think you're the one if you're willing to do this." And he was, and
Mhm.
that's how we got it.
It's awesome. And what would you say after meeting with him made you guys think this is the guy who would be the best fit for us?
For me, it was I kind of knew it before he came, because again, I had worked with Shane on and off for over 30 years.
Mhm.
So I knew the type of person he was. I knew the type of leader he was. It was really all about whether he could convince Jerry, not convinced, but whether Jerry and Brad saw the same thing in him that I did.
Mhm.
And they did. And really what they saw was that he was a good man and he offered great leadership qualities. The rest they leaned on me to tell them that look, he has the he has the oomph to get this done. He's got the hoot spot, if you will.
Yeah.
And they trusted me enough to know that I wouldn't bring someone forth that wasn't capable of running our company.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I'm curious too, because you mentioned that you had 6 months with him on the front lines, right? So, what was he actually doing on a day-to-day basis to be able to learn the different levels of how the business ran?
Yeah, go ride with the DMs. Go
Mhm.
spend days in stores with store managers, see how they do their role, see how they perform their job every day. Spend time with our HR and our asset protect or our human resource people. Spend days with our director of pricing to understand how we price, how we market, how we go to business. I mean, really immerse yourselves in just what do you do for a job? What's your job? What's your role with the company? No, I want you to go out there and learn. I want you to go out there and understand what Rochelle does every day. What does Corey do every day? What does Glenn do every day? And know it the way they know it. Maybe not quite, but really understand what they do. And he did a great job of doing that for those six months.
Awesome. That's really cool. And I'm curious as well, like this, as you guys were doing this for a year, was having two CEOs at once, right? So you have the leader and then also the leader in waiting. So how do you make a case with the owners that something like that is actually worth it?
Yeah, well, you reverse engineer that, and you go, Jerry, Brad, what happens if we don't do it? I mean, that makes them think because yes, it's a tremendous expense to the business to bring in two CEO type or to bring in a second CEO type individual. And I knew going in that that was going to be a hard, pill to swallow, so to speak. But when I met with them, the question really was, what happens if we don't do this? We
Mhm.
didn't feel like at the time, Carly, that we had my successor in the building. We didn't have that person on our staff.
Mm.
Jerry, if we don't do this, then you're going to have to come back and run the business day to day. Or Brad, you're going to have to do it.
Mhm.
And both of those guys had gotten to a point to where they were very comfortable in their roles as owner, and they did not want to come back and have because they were going to have to relearn the business as well because
Mhm.
they had been so disconnected because quite honestly, I disconnected them from their business.
Mhm.
That was my job. My job was to run the company, not for them to have to run it. So I think it became a pretty easy sell when they started thinking about it from my perspective, which is it's a much higher cost not to do it than
Mhm.
to do it.
Um, and I'm curious as well as like when did you actually know and realize that it could be the right time to hand it over to Shane? When did you feel that it was with all the training and stuff, it was the perfect time?
Yeah. It's a
Mhm.
very mutual decision. I would meet with Jerry and Brad, almost weekly, and we would talk about, how things going, are we on the right path? About April is when I told Jerry, I think we're getting close to getting me off the payroll. And
Mhm.
we talked about, what else does Shane need? What does the business need? What does the business need from me? I stayed on for a few months and still stay on as a consultant. Shane called me this morning, had a question for me, and I took care of him. And that was important to me.
Mhm.
I'm not I'm not dead. I'm not in the ground. So if they need me, they can call me. And I still speak to Jerry, gosh, at least once or twice a week because he's a friend. He's not just the owner. And so I want to stay connected with those guys as well.
I'm curious to even the transition for you because it's a different job, right? You went from doing the work on a daily basis to shifting that from building the person who was going to actually take over and do that. So you went from, yeah, basically doing the work to a real leadership delegation role. When did that shift start to happen to you within that year? And was it
Yeah,
challenging to sort of walk away from?
extremely,
Mhm.
extremely. And in October of this past year, Jerry, asked me if I was ready to step back, and I said no, but we have to. For this to work, we can't have two leaders. And I took a step back, and it is tough, and you should expect it to be tough.
Mhm.
Shane doesn't lead exactly the way I do. I don't lead exactly the way he does. And if I would have continued to step on him or over him, then he doesn't get to where he needs to be. So
Mhm.
I literally had to force myself to pull back, to back away from those day-to-day decisions, let him lead the company. And it was a very, again, deliberate decision, but one I think had to be made. Was it uncomfortable? Every day,
Mhm.
because I wanted to step in and go, "Hey, well, let's," you know, and you realize for this to work, you just can't do that.
And I'm curious to like the transition of the owners. Like, how did you guys manage that with the rest of the team, the rest of the employees? Like, do you do anything to prepare them?
Yeah, we were honest and upfront every step of the way from the time I hired, well, actually, from the time Jerry hired me. I had told my team, stores, store directors, all along the way that, guys, I'm here as a transition. I'm here to build this company as much as I can over the next few years and prepare it for the next step. So our teams knew when Shane come in, I told the teams, this is my replacement. This is the guy that's going to lead our company going forward. So there was no, hidden agenda. We were very upfront with our store teams from day one, and have been, up until even today.
Amazing. That's very cool. And even that dynamic of culture too, because I know that like even though you guys have a small corporate office, you have a significant quantity of employees elsewhere. So how do you guys like stay connected with everyone? How does Shane do it? How are you doing it?
Yeah, it is tough. When you have, 40, 50 individual employees in every location, and then corporate staff. But it's done on those day-to-day store walks when we visit stores, slow down, say hello to everyone, step into the back rooms, step into the coolers and freezers where employees may be working. I, Carly, being a personable person for me is very important. I want to know if someone's got a family member in the hospital. I want to know if, Joe just had his new baby, and I try my best to remember those things, always ask about those people. Again, I wanted to run this company as a family. I wanted it to feel like family, and that's important to me, and I'm so grateful Shane is the same way. He is fantastic with, remembering people's birthdays, and, boy, when you have 650 people, that's hard to do, and I'm not
It
saying he
is.
does it, but he does some things phenomenally well, better than me, but I always tell him his brain's younger than mine. So he has he has more capacity still. But, those things are important when you have employees. I think employees want to know you care,
Yeah.
and when you show that, then I think they dig just a little harder every day to make the customer happy.
Okay. And I'm curious too, like as you were leaving and transitioning, are you guys still planning on moving into a growth phase?
Yes, that's our current chatter right now. I know Jerry and Shane and Brad are looking every day for new locations. Um, Glad to see gas prices coming down and the economy stabilizing a little bit. That's always good. But I think there's, Jerry and I had a goal. We wanted to open 30 stores,
Mhm.
and we're halfway there. And I think they'll get there. I think they'll get the other half very easily.
Amazing. Well, you guys did the additional pretty quickly, so you
Yeah, it was. I wanted more. But
Yeah.
again, we are an opportunistic business, so you take opportunity where you can.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair. And I know that you're consulting with them right now during the transition, so you get to act as an advisor, but you're also choosing to stay in the grocery industry as an advisor anyways, instead of just diving into retirement. So what kind of pulled you back into the business? What made you decide to do that?
Carly, 50 years in this business, it's what I know and it's what I love.
Yeah.
And if a independent retailer calls me today and says, "Man, I'd love for you to come help me and guide me, give me some advice, consult, if you will," I would absolutely bolt to the car, to the truck to go help them. I love this industry. It's given me so much. It's given my family so much. And any way that I could stay connected, via speaking, advising, consulting, I'm excited to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if someone came up to you trying to understand this business, get into it, what's something that you would tell them? The first thing that you would tell them to maybe not worry about, to understand?
Dig in. The grocery business, there's no grocery 101 college in America. It doesn't exist. I say in my book that the grocery store is the greatest management training ground in America. What you can experience in a day in a supermarket is
Mhm.
every facet of management that you could possibly imagine. And it changes every day. So if you think you want a career in retail, particularly grocery retail, go get a job because there are plenty of them out there. People aren't, waiting in line to go to work in grocery stores, but those people that go and they like it and they find it rewarding, it is there are so many opportunities in the grocery business today for young leaders. I have a son that's a senior director in the grocery business as well, and there's just tons of opportunities out there for young people looking to get involved.
That's amazing. And what is something about how groceries should be done that you still believe that maybe the industry hasn't really caught up to yet?
Ooh, gosh, that's a great question. The technology is so advanced today. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm a little old school. I still believe that all the customers should be checked out. They shouldn't have to check themselves out. But that's just me being old school. Um, I don't know. That's a great question. When you look at electronic shelf labels and e-commerce and, now you get groceries brought straight to your door. You don't even have to leave your living room. I don't know that I'm smart enough to say what the next wave looks like, Carly. They're way ahead of this old man.
I do like the current wave. I didn't have to go to the grocery store today, so that was nice. They just dropped
I'm
it off.
pretty sure that while I've been on this call with you, we may have had groceries delivered.
Yeah, I do love this wave, I'm not gonna lie. Um, and if you look just back into your lifetime, right? So you walked out as CEO kind of on your own terms. If you could go back and tell the child version of yourself, the young adult, the one who first started bagging groceries, what would it be?
Wow. Stay true to yourself. Integrity is extremely important. Communicate. I think communication is the key to not only business but running a great business, having great people, and talking with people and communication in general is just so important to good business. And listen.
Mm.
I think probably the greatest fault some amazing leaders have is the failure to listen or listen well. And we call it listen loudly. So uh, I would tell myself to be a better listener and a better communicator.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for coming today. I really
Oh,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Oh, it's been great fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, if people wanna find out more about you, where do they go?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's Terry at terrystanleyspeaks.com. And yeah, reach out.
Awesome. I'll put that in the show notes too. And if anyone found this inspiring, enjoyed the information, feel free to share it with someone else who you also think would gain some value out of it. And thank you again for coming, Terry. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for having me. Thank you.